Okay, here we go. Nice and quiet.
Sound speeds, camera rolling.
Holding for sound.
Last looks. Calling for last looks.
And set, and action.
I need to swap batteries.
You know, making movies is hard.
Making movies is hard.
Welcome to Making Movies is Hard, the podcast about the everyday struggles of being an independent filmmaker. I am Liz Bedeshell.
And I am Alrik Bursell.
This week, we have writer, director, producer Christian Sesma.
I always go, man, I wish I was just kind of like chilling. I have this idea that's like, oh man, I have a great idea for a movie. It's more like, bro, I got to pay the bills.
Who was a restaurateur, and then he started a second career as a filmmaker, and he has about 10 plus features under his belt now. We talked to him today about Pay Dirt, starring Luke Goss and Val Kilmer.
Listen to me. Television is not the truth. We'll tell you anything you want to hear. We lie like hell.
What about the news, Alrik?
What about the news? Oh my gosh. So I went on the old internet yesterday, and I was like looking, and there's a lot of interesting stories, but I think the one that is the most thrilling to me and scary is this whole thing that vertical integration in movies is now going to be illegal again. Yeah. After 60 years of it being illegal or something, or more than that, almost 80 years. It's been a long time. It was like in the 40s, I guess, when this was made
Paramount
illegal.
decrees. Yeah,
exactly.
Insane.
And so I don't know why this has happened now, and it seems pretty crazy. I mean, I'm gonna just give you my little idea of what this all means and the things. But in the old days, that's why you had like Paramount Theater and Fox theaters all around the country, is because Paramount and Fox used to own their own theaters, and they would play only their movies exclusively and control the release. And then this was decided that it was bad because it was going to really hurt theater owners and just be bad for the business in general. And now it's back. Besides the fact that Amazon, Netflix, and all these other companies can now own their own theaters and control their own content, the thing that really scared me that I read in this article, let's say Mr. Studio, like Universal, you have the new Fast and Furious movie that all the theaters want. They can make a contract that says not only do you get Fast and the Furious, but you also have to pay for these 8 other movies or 9 other movies that we want you to screen at the same time, or you won't get Fast and Furious 9 or whatever, because we won't do the deal unless you also screen these 10 other movies that aren't good as profitable for you, but we want you to get out into the world and we want you to pay for. So for any theater who needs that Fast and Furious movie to sell tickets and to actually keep the revenue of the theater going, they basically can't do it, and they're gonna have to shut down. Basically, if Universal was to make that deal, which they can now, which they couldn't before. I don't know, Liz. What do you think about this? What do you think this is gonna look like for theaters going forward?
In my diplomatic fashion, I always have 2 responses. But I did talk to Sean, my partner, about this vertical integration thing, and we were talking about the multiplexes that have about 20 movie theaters within their umbrella or whatever, their structure. And we were just like, well, a studio doesn't have 20 movies that are output at the exact same time. So yes, maybe a theater is playing 5 different Fast and the Furious is 20, and then the other 15 are iterations of projecting these other titles. But really, they're gonna lose money operating these screening rooms that are going to be either empty or I can't quite do the math on this scenario. But what I was thinking is that there's this gorgeous marquee theater in downtown LA that's shut down completely, or used to be the site of a flea market. And you just think these beautiful cathedral movie theaters that used to exist, at least they're being used. At the very least, someone's using them. I'd much rather it be the art house theater owner projecting classics and foreign and indie films. But whether it's if it's that or the theater goes out of business and gets turned into, an apartment building somehow, I'd rather have the theater exist. So I'm hoping
and be owned by Netflix or something, you mean?
Yeah, I would. I'd rather it be in existence than just falling to pieces and repurposed for some other business, because I believe in the beauty of these gorgeous architectural, the Deco movie theaters that used to exist, right?
Right.
So I know that that's an exception to the rule, but I'd rather protect those buildings.
It seems kind of crazy to me because on one hand, it's like, okay, these theaters are already going away, right? Like theaters are like disappearing and have been disappearing for the last 30, 40 years or whatever. And now we have some that are still around, these old theaters that still exist, like the Grand Lake Theater near my house that I love. Like the idea of more of them going away due to this seems, that's the worst thing, right? Like you don't want that. But yeah, is it so bad that if there's, my Grand Lake Theater becomes the Amazon Grand Lake Theater,
I mean,
or
it's
whatever,
crappy.
or the Disney Grand Lake Theater? It's like, yeah, if it meant that the Grand Lake Theater didn't crumble and disappear, yes, I'm just going to echo what you said. Like, I totally agree that would be much better to me. But I mean, will it mean in more theaters? Like, because if it means more theaters, yeah, like that's, I want more theaters. Give me as many theaters as you got. Like, I will go to an Amazon, a Netflix, a Disney, a Fox, a Paramount theater, every week if they existed in my town and they had different movies that I wanted to see. Like, that wouldn't bother me, but that doesn't seem as feasible, right? Like, why would there be more theaters showing less movies and like more operating costs? But maybe that's what's going to happen. I don't know. Or maybe like the Century Theater, the United Artists Theater, and the AMC Theater that are in my town will just all become individually owned theaters from different studios. Like, one will become an Amazon, one will become a Netflix. Like, is that what's going to happen? Like, I don't really know. But I mean, it seems scary.
Yes, this is not good. I don't think this is good news in like the big picture sense of it. But if we're going to kind of negotiate in our mind a silver lining to this, that's what I've done. I'm negotiating silver linings.
What I don't understand is why this is happening and why, like, theaters have enough bad shit going on right now. Like, why do they need another like level of shit being dumped on them? I don't understand. But do you know why this is happening or what the deal behind this is?
Oh, no. I mean, I really wish I was in these conversations because studio distribution, I don't understand. But I do know, like, there are gatherings, and I think I mentioned this before, but there's gatherings of, like, independent art house theater owners, and they gather together once a year at something called the Art House Convergence. It happens before Sundance every year. And there's a contingency of these amazing heroes of indie cinema that are trying to defend and support their theater. Unless they're like, you look at something like Kino Lorber or Alamo On Demand, like there are these smaller distribution companies or chains that are trying to get with like the COVID virtual screenings. But some of these theaters don't have the tech, don't have the infrastructure, and are probably going out of business. So that's what I'm guessing, that this is like sharks seeing the blood in the water and capitalizing on the moment.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I don't know. I mean, I would love to hear what other people think about this, and because obviously we're not so educated in all of this stuff. We just see this headline and read this article and just like, start to get nervous. What is this going to mean for us? What's the future going to hold in this new world where vertical integration is back in filmmaking? I don't know. We'll see. I want to spend like 3 seconds talking about this just because I think it's so fascinating. There's another article I saw on No Film School about Alejandro Jodorowsky saying that COVID is actually good for filmmakers because now we're going to have to actually tell human stories in smaller films, and we're going to be going away from, the big blockbuster superhero movies and stuff. And I don't know, maybe this is just a 90-year-old man who's like a little like optimistic or something. Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't seem like that's the way that this is going to go.
I just keep thinking about us talking to that COVID compliance officer, that fabulous John Snyder from a few weeks ago, and just thinking about the money that's being poured into making bigger productions happen and then leaning on technology. Like, I also keep thinking about like baseball games where they have, patrons like in the crowd. I mean, just there's ways to make films happen or events happen without people, and they turn into these bubbles, right? So I want to believe Jodorowsky. What a cool guy. What a lovely thought. But until I'm able to make my movie, I won't believe in anything. So I have to see my movie being greenlit to like really believe that this is true.
They always say like art reflects life or whatever. And so a lot of the things that I've been thinking about lately is like, COVID's not going anywhere. It's here to stay for the time being. It's going to be a part of our history as a society. You know, this is nothing that we can hide from. So why aren't we just making movies that are taking place within the time of COVID? And that would all solve a lot of problems. Like, people would just be wearing masks, like, in, you know, big, wide exteriors and in scenes with extras, because that's what is happening right now. So why don't we just make movies within the time that we are in and tell a story where COVID is happening? And then, like, there will obviously be scenes without masks on because we can't have people wearing masks throughout a whole movie. But I think it would just make the mask be more part of the story, and it wouldn't be as big of a deal, you know?
I'm not against that, but it's still the issue of those interior scenes of those smaller movies are still going to have the COVID compliance officer and the extra department and the extra budget. So, like,
well, that's not going anywhere
movies,
anyways, but that's not stopping.
Well, yeah, but these smaller human movies still have to adhere to health and safety standards, which are not within our budget levels right now.
Yeah, but I think you just have to work that into the budget. It's like kind of like what I think Christian Sesma is going to say later is like they're making a movie right now. They just took their budget and then they had to scale back the story to make it work with the compliance, you know, restraints. And so they did that. So I think that's just going to be another challenge that we have to face as filmmakers, especially people from the indie side. This is the kind of stuff that we do all the time. It's like working with low budgets, working with constraints. So we're
constantly
okay.
having to pivot, find money, be creative.
Yeah, exactly. So hey Liz, do you have mail for us?
We do. We have mail.
My breath catches in my chest until I hear 3 little words. You got mail.
We have a review from Earl's Mr. E. Okay, 5 stars. August 4th. Earl's Mr. E says, I listen to many filmmaking podcasts. MMIH is one I look forward to. I enjoyed the old format and I enjoy the new format more and more each week. Making movies is hard, but it's easier when you know you're not alone. Thanks, Liz and Alrik, for letting us hang out with you and your guests. Oh, Earl's Mr. E. Thanks, buddy.
I think I know who this is.
Damn it. Why can't there be a stranger?
Well, because Earl's been emailing me through the podcast since December, I guess, like when I was making the alternate, and he had some really wonderful feedback on the what's it called, the set logs that I did, and like some really encouraging words when I was getting very down in the dumps. He was like, Alrik, you have to have more confidence. Alrik, don't worry about it. Like, you should just go forward and push forward. Like, I feel bad for you, but just keep on going. And I was like, thanks, Earl.
Thanks, Earl.
It. But then he also requested to watch the movie. He wanted to watch the cut and give me feedback as a filmmaker. So I sent it to him, and he gave me some great notes. So thank you, Earl. Appreciate it. So do you have something to say? Do you have a question or a comment or a suggestion? You can send it to podcast@makingmoviesishard.com. Or if you want to be like Earl's Mr. E, you can leave us a review on iTunes or Spotify or any of the places that you can leave reviews or comments for the show. YouTube, for instance, you could comment on one of the postings or videos that we've put up there that have 5 views each. And also, speaking of YouTube, you should go over there and you should subscribe, because I think we've got like 30 subscribers now or something. And it's like, August, 16th, and we need to have, another 70 in less than a month if we're going to launch this YouTube channel. So people, please, can you go on and subscribe? I know we have more than 70 listeners who haven't subscribed yet. So please, guys, if you could, we'd really appreciate it. We also have a Patreon page. So if you really love the show, you want to support us, you can go over to www.patreon.com/MMIH podcast and give us $1, $5, or $9 to get one of our wonderful pins. But yeah, let's get to Get Shorty.
So you make movies, huh?
I produce feature motion pictures.
I got an idea for a movie.
All right, so we have our segment called Get Shorty, and I have to say, I don't know if people enjoy listening to Get Shorty, but we certainly have a lot of short filmmakers who want to be featured in this segment. So this week, we are highlighting a movie produced, written, and starring Hannah Marie Hines called Celie.
So here's Hannah to talk about the film.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on your podcast. So why did I make Celie a short? This was my first foray into screenwriting. I'm primarily an actor. That's what I've been doing for many years, and so that's very much in my comfort zone. And the thought of writing something to act in made me hugely nervous. I'd had this idea for the script percolating for, I kid you not, like 9 years, and it took me so long to work up the courage to just step out of my creative comfort zone into a different medium. I knew that this story would work well in a short format. It's a quick encounter. I really wanted to write about an encounter between two people, and so I knew that I didn't need to do anything long form, nor did I want to, since I was new to screenwriting. So we decided, my director, Scott Ledger, and I decided that we were really going to aim to keep this under 10 minutes. We felt like this is a story we could tell pretty succinctly. I'm a modern millennial woman who also happens to be very religious. I'm a practicing Catholic, and I have been my whole life. And there are those two aspects of myself sometimes feel at odds. And I really wanted to write this story that examined those two different parts of myself in these two different characters, Father Peter and Celie. You've got Father Peter kind of representing something that is often perceived as maybe archaic or no longer relevant, and Celie, who's very much modern and in the world, and I wanted to get them in the same space together and see what happened. I wanted to see if these two very different viewpoints could coexist peaceably. So it's personal for me in that way, and that's why I decided to tell this story in particular. I also loosely based Father Peter off of an acquaintance, a friend of mine, Father Stephen, that I used to know in Colorado, who's sadly no longer with us, but my friendship with him was really special, and so I wanted to, in a small way, honor him too. Our team, how do we come up with the funds? Our director, Scott, and I decided we were going to do this as micro budget as possible. We would do it SAG and everyone would be paid, but he and I chose to just split the cost of making the short down the middle between the two of us. So we just funded it ourselves. Yeah, we didn't do any crowdfunding or anything like that. We just decided to make the thing. I had hoped that the short would have a really good festival run, and we had a hard time finding a good festival home for this film. So beforehand, I had hoped that, perhaps some great conversations and exposure and visiting some festivals would come out of it. What ended up happening is we made something we're really proud of that we had a hard time finding a festival home for, and so we decided, we had wrapped up post right around the beginning of when the quarantine started, and we just thought, people are home, they are looking for new content, why don't we just share this online and let people watch it and enjoy it and experience it? And that's what we ended up doing, and I don't really have any regrets about that. I was a little nervous kind of just like throwing my creative baby like onto the internet, especially since it has some themes that are touchy for people, like faith and body image, women's bodies, and I really wasn't sure how it was going to be perceived, but the reception was wonderful, and it ended up being really a joy to share it in that way. My hope with this short was to write a story about two people who come alongside one another, meaning that they see the world very differently, but they meet each other where they're at. And the world that we live in right now is so divided. The sort of cultural temperature is even, one of hostility towards people who believe different things than we believe. My hope is that the purpose that it serves now is to, first and foremost, entertain people, make them smile, and hopefully be touching in some way when they watch it, but also serve as a reminder that we can, even if we see the world very differently than someone else, we can meet them where they're at and love them. So that may sound pie in the sky or idealistic, but that's my artistic hope for our short, Celie.
So I was watching this on my phone while I was like prepping for a job and like extremely stressed out, and I watched half of it and I was like, oh wow, this is cool. Like I really liked the way that the movie started, and I thought the concept was really interesting. And then I rewatched it again this morning because I didn't finish it, and I really liked that it didn't drag. Like it was a nice tight pacing. The length was good. It wasn't too long. It's like 8 minutes, and I thought the performances were really solid. Really, like, this is kind of going to sound really silly, but like I was impressed with the hospital set. Like I'm always impressed with hospital sets. Like, and that one just felt really real, and it was also stylized because it was like its own color. It was like blue, which I don't know if was like their intention specifically or if that was just the color of the hospital set they were able to get. But yeah, I don't know. I thought it really had a nice vibe to it. It's kind of interesting movie because it's specific and it's funny, but it doesn't really, like, the tone and the style of it. It's like really kind of in the middle. Like it never really goes over the top comedy. it doesn't go like super like art house drama. It's like in the middle. It's like this interesting thing, and I'm just kind of curious like where that came from, but it just had a very distinct like middle ground style to it, which I thought was interesting. And I don't know what this even means. Like, do I wish that it was more over the top of a comedy and like just like really goofy and crazy with this priest or whatever, or do I wish it was more real and gritty and like off-putting with the priest? I don't know if I really want any of that. I just thought it was really kind of distinct. It was like right in the center, and I don't know. I'm curious to hear what people think about it.
I agree with you about the tone. I hadn't thought about it, but I feel you're completely right. It's like this nice slice of life. And I think the reason I was hoping we would highlight this film is because it is a good example of what the content of a short film should be about, right? So it's not an idea that needs 45 minutes to explore. You know, it's like the fear and the trepidation, but also like this exploration of faith and belief. But it was very smartly done, just like you were saying, and it's like 8-minute duration. But I think the best part of it for me is I'm in the Hannah Marie Hines fan club. I was in a director's workshop with her, and I've seen her do like dozens of scenes, and she's just a wonderful actress. And having produced this, having written this, having starred in this, I want to see her in more. And I love the idea of her taking ownership of more projects and really getting herself out there. She's very successful. It's not as if she like needs exposure, but I just like the idea of, I love when actors take on projects that show the quality of their range. And I thought she was really subtle, and I love the moment where you could see her emotionally affected by the conversation with the priest, but it wasn't, like you were saying, it wasn't this like melodramatic tears streaming down her face experience. It was very just sweet and light and all you needed as an audience member. So I thought the script was very graceful in that sense. I thought they did a good job.
Yeah, with a few jokes sprinkled in there in a very nice way, amidst the wonderful performance. I do agree. I thought Hannah was really great in the lead. Just really convincing. All the actors were really convincing, But Liz, what do you got for the player this week?
Well, just before we get to the player, just a reminder that if anybody wants us to promote their short film, we're picking ones that reflect, I don't know, Alrik, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think we're picking ones that reflect like what a successful short could be, what a contained shoot could be, what an easily producible film could be, or films that would just knock us out of the park, right? Something that we have something to talk about. So just email your short to us and explain why we should talk about it, I guess.
Yeah, and I'm keeping like a log of all the shorts that we get, and like I'm kind of archiving them together. So if you've sent us one and we even haven't heard back from us, or we haven't put you on the show yet, don't worry, we might still feature it. We're just kind of collecting them as we do shout outs for short films. But yeah, please send them over. And I don't know, I think I'm just looking for things that are different. And then I also want to highlight movies that haven't gotten a lot of attention, that there's no reason why they shouldn't. Like they're just as good or even better than a movie that got like 100,000 or 1 million hits or something, but for some reason it just didn't attract attention. So those are the ones that I'm really looking for, is ones that I think like really should be getting more love but haven't for whatever reason. So Liz, the player, what do we got? What's going on?
What about truth? What about the reality?
What about the way the old ending tested in Canoga Park?
So our prompt this week was asking amazing female-identifying independent storytellers about their favorite film festival experience. What festivals have they enjoyed and why? And we talked to Sudeshna Sen and Alrik Burunova.
Hi, my name is Alrik Burunova, and I'm a writer-director. So I've been to a lot of festivals. Between two of my short films that got into over 60, I probably attended at least 25 of them. And, each festival has their own special things about it. I love the quaint festivals where you really get to know the programmers and you really get a chance to meet all the participants. But I have to say that my favorite festival was Cannes Film Festival. In 2015, I had my short film Lonely Planet at the Short Film Corner, and it was also playing at the same time at Diversity in Cannes, which happens at the same time. I just loved the experience because you have such an incredible access to top industry players, all packed tightly in one space. And networking in Cannes is definitely something else. I've met some incredible people, producers, publicists, people I still work with closely. And, because it's south of France, there's something really fabulous about it. When you meet someone with a glass of wine overlooking the French Riviera, the conversations are just easier. For some reason, people are just more at ease and they're willing to hear about you and your project. And, a lot of people there are looking for young voices, new talents. So I found it very easy to connect with really good people. So if you get a chance, that is definitely one of the best festivals, definitely worth attending. And yeah, thanks for having me.
Hi, my name is Sudeshna Sen, and I'm a writer-director. And I've made about 5 shorts, 3 of them narrative, 2 documentaries. My favorite film festival experience would easily be the Q&A that comes after every screening. Making a movie is hard. It often takes very long, and I love hearing the backstory, what goes on behind the scenes, what it took to get the film made, what it took to have everything in place, and what are the investments that each person who had a role in the film had in this project. For instance, what was the director's biggest stake in the game? What were the producers thinking? And why did they want to make this film? And all of these questions usually get answered in the Q&A. And so to me, the film itself, while it's the main course, it's almost as if the Q&A is the dessert, and it's the dessert that I'm waiting for. The film festivals that I have enjoyed the most are South by Southwest in Austin, Outfest in LA, Seattle International Film Festival, local sightings also at Seattle. These are fantastic experiences. Obviously, not all of them are the same size. And big festivals like South by Southwest are greatly enjoyable. But they also can be somewhat intimidating just because of the sheer amount of stuff that's going on. And smaller festivals like local sightings give the option of a more intimate Q&A where I have a chance of actually talking to the director or the producer and the key creatives and getting to know them really well. I like both sides. I like the big festivals. I like the small festivals. I just love the personal connection that one is able to make at these places.
Liz, what is your favorite film festival that you've ever been to? If you could just say one, caveat, you've had to play there, so not that you just went to, but your favorite one that you played.
I always say this one, and it's Phoenix Film Festival. There's this movie directed by Paul Osborne called Official Rejection, and it's like, I don't know if you see this, but it's a documentary about him making this movie called 10 Till Noon, and he submitted it a bunch of places. I believe, I'm hoping, Paul's made a bunch of movies, so I'm hoping I'm referencing the right one. And it's all about him being rejected by film festivals, that experience, just like the emotional experience of a filmmaker. Anyway, there's a whole segment about his amazing experience at Phoenix Film Festival. So I submitted my first feature there, and they treat you like royalty. They throw parties for you, they fly you, they house you, they give you amazing screenings, populated screenings. The heads of the festival, the most lovely human beings, Jason and Greg. In the program, I really think that it's a really well run organization. So I always talk about Phoenix, but what do you like?
I went to this film festival in Toronto called the Toronto After Dark Film Festival. It's a genre film festival, and I my first short film played there, and it was just a wonderful experience. Like, everybody there is so wonderful. I didn't get flown out. I didn't get any stipend or anything, but they have parties every night. The parties are really fun. The way they welcome filmmakers was really warm and inviting. And then the thing that I think is the most important is it fucking sold out every night. It's like 10 nights of films. Like, each short block that I went to, like 500 seat theater, in a big movie theater, sold out, including mine, which was, oh my God, terrifying and great. And then, yeah, for their main movies, for their features, it's like a 1,500 seat theater, 1,000 seat theater, sold out every night, no matter what. And they do a short before the feature, and then they do a feature, and they do, I think, 2 features and shorts a night. I went to as many movies as I possibly could while I was there. I met all the filmmakers when I was there. They have great Q&As. It's just a really wonderful festival. I can't say better things about them. It was just fantastic. So yeah, if you are lucky enough to get into After Dark, go for sure. It's awesome.
Oh, yay. So there's Lots of lovely festivals out there. I guess without further ado, let's hear from Christian Sesma.
Let's do it.
So starting off with our first rapid fire questions, Christian, for Pay Dirt, how many days did you shoot?
12.
Oh, wow. Oh, man. And what was your budget?
Under $1 million.
How long was the process from inception till its release?
Oh, so, what's today? Today's I'm like, minus COVID, take away the divide to this. I mean, the movie was finished in May and we wrapped in December the shoot. So I think it's about 10 months from start to finish, I would say.
Wait, including scripts?
Everything.
Oh my God. Okay. Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And then how big was your crew?
We had about 35, 40 people.
Out of all your projects, how difficult was this one?
It was actually, you know what, I'm on one literally as we speak. Shooting in the time of COVID is very difficult, and it's summer here in Coachella Valley of the desert. So maxed up in 110 degrees is hot. That's harder. And then it's COVID testing every 3 days. Everybody's social distance. We're in our quarantine pod for the most part, but that's definitely a difficult style of shooting. But the love of making movies makes it kind of almost feel normal. You know, you're just kind of like, we're making movies still. But Pay Dirt was fun. It was a blast. I don't think it was that difficult per se. I think everybody showed up and on time and worked, and like financing was there, and it just was another indie film that we got to shoot. I mean, obviously, I think it was actually a little bit easier than most because it was here in my backyard, so I got to like sleep in my own bed and then just kind of drive out of my house to set. So it was pretty close.
Was that the first one you've done in Palm Springs, or
no? This was probably like this. I mean, technically, if we're, taking away like the first movies that I did just to kind of like see what I wanted to do in life. I mean, this is probably like the 7th time I've shot here.
So I want to derail the conversation about Pay Dirt really quick, just to talk about what you're doing now. So how long have you been shooting this movie? And
we just started, yeah.
Oh, you just started? Okay.
Yeah, it's been about a week and some change.
Wow. And then, like, what is the COVID restrictions like? Like, how are you guys approaching your COVID protocols?
Yeah, well, the good thing is that everybody has to be cleared and tested before even stepping on set, right? So what we're doing is like we've basically created our own kind of quarantine pod, a quarantine island that all the cast and crew is staying in the same place, right? Before nobody. It's like if we're going out at night, it's all together and in this designated spot. I mean, people aren't just kind of going back to their homes and then coming back in here. I mean, it's really a very kind of safe, secure environment. There's like COVID officers, there's like a safety and sanitation PA. Craft services is handed out by one person alone. Like you can't just go up and grab stuff. You have to go there to like the person, order like whatever. I need water, I need this, and they'll individually hand you things. Lunches individually packaged. Departments kind of stick with their own departments in a way. It's like a 5-person pod here, another 5-person pod there. I mean, I think myself and maybe the other producer, the only person that is really kind of intermixing. It's still very, very controlled. And like I said, we're getting tested every 3 days.
Are you wearing like masks and face shields when you like deal with talent, or is it just masks?
Yeah. It's right now it's masks. It's like the N95, and then I have another kind of cover mask on top of that. Because it's hot, so we have like a gaiter. It's hot.
Wow.
So like a cool gaiter, so it's a few things, yeah.
Wow. Do you have a rough idea of like what the effect on budget was to have the COVID team? Like
on an indie film, that's like $30,000 for that.
Yeah. Wow, man, crazy.
It was an actual hit. Like it was an actual, it was an actual like, oh man, this is a real, because it's not just that, it's also insurances, right? So just the COVID testing procedures, all that kind of stuff is its own thing and its own cost. But then the insurances are definitely higher.
Did you fundraise additionally, or did you just cut from various departments?
Cut. It was tough. I mean, it was one of these things where the budget was done. We started going into it, and then SAG cleared us, and we were like, okay, these are the new. We already had a protocol in place. It was more just you don't know until you're in it, and then you start like actually doing the numbers, you're like, oh my God, okay. So unfortunately, I mean, it's one of those, it's kind of like the cost of doing business, you know, in a way. I come from the restaurant business, so it's kind of like not that crazy. Like I come from the restaurant business, it's like, yeah, we got to do like temperature checks every hour. I got to wash my hands. We're using gloves. We're using this. I think it wasn't that like outlandish per se, relatively, right?
Right. What was the process to get cleared by SAG? Like, what did you have to do for them to be like, okay, you can go make this movie?
Oh man, a lot. I mean, that's more of a, like Mike Hatton, my producing partner, like he deals more on the SAG front. I'm more of the producer that starts getting the assets together and things like that for the most part. But when it comes to that, I mean, it's just, you have to submit your protocols. We formed an advisory board from like the heads of the hospital and the mayors of the cities who are, luckily they're my friends, you know, like we get to say, hey, how do we create an advisory board that's ensuring the safety of production on our side, not just like the Screen Actors Guild side, the union side. So I felt like we were doubly protected, but there's a lot of, you know, I want to say it's hoops to jump, but that's kind of demeaning what the process is. It's more just, we just have to really submit safety procedures and adhere to them and make sure that they know we're doing that.
Or just to realize that it's like you are in the best case scenario as a filmmaker right now. I mean, if I'm allowed to just put my judgment on you, my positive
judge me,
because it's
judge me.
You are releasing a film at a time where streaming is up, right? It is high. You're making a film when a lot of people are not able to figure out how to make content, especially long form content at this moment. It's just like insane to me. I just realized, and you have, what is that, like the Coppola oil well theory? Like you have this other business that I don't know whether you're drawing income from or you're just able to have a sustainable lifestyle. But like, can we talk? I know I honestly, just like Alrik, could talk about COVID for like the next 3 hours, but I also want to take a step back. Can we talk a little bit about building up to the situation you are in now? It's like pretty impressive, Christian.
Well, thank you. It's funny when COVID hit and we started seeing the landscape change, you know, we don't know how it's all going to pan out, but I do kind of like, we're like, dude, we've just started seeing huge tentpole releases push back. And personally, I'm like, no, like you took away my happy place. Like I could see, I'm like, dude, that has been a major hit. Like just for me personally, like I'm always at the theater every weekend, seeing everything. Like every time, I'm just that guy. I'm like, why are you going to movies at 10:30 a.m.? Because that's what I do, you know, like, yes. I started seeing the landscape change, and I you know, I have to say I had the same thoughts that you did, Liz, where I'm like, we might be in a good position here. And it's like Pay Dirt is like coming out. Probably we would have just gotten lost in the shuffle of like other straight to DVD style titles. You know, I think with the fact that, you know, it's Val coming back in a way, or just more like he hasn't been in the forefront for a long time. And then Top Gun was technically supposed to come out before this. So for us, we're like, oh man, we're going to be riding off the Top Gun press. And, you know, there's this little movie that he did in Palm Springs that is, you know, might get us a little press. And then with everything shifted, it's kind of like, man, Pay Dirt's like one of the only things coming out with like Tax Collector, who I'm a giant fan of David Ayers. And that looks super dope. And I'm like, dude, it's like, it's kind of crazy. And yeah, I agree. It's like, I think for the next year, at least, with no content coming out, people like myself that can make higher quality indie, low budget flicks that are still entertaining, that can be streamed like along anything else, might be in good positions, you know? It's one of those things like, I'm born for this. Let's go, you know, let's just go make these movies. Because we're small enough and contained enough to keep churning stuff out. Like, I could see the giant hit that COVID has on the studio. I mean, how are you going to have hundreds of people on the set? I mean, it's difficult for us to contain our crew, which we've trimmed down to like 20, 25 on certain days. But, you know, we have it contained and it's manageable. I could see the problems when it's hundreds and hundreds of people in departments.
So for this movie that you're making now, like, and I guess Pay Dirt and everything else, are you like your own production company where you guys are like raising the funds, bringing the budgets together, and then producing and directing the movies? Or are you working with a bigger studio? Like, how is your system?
No, it's just that. It's exactly how you said it, and then we sell it off to a distributor or a studio. So that it's exactly that. So myself as the writer, director, and producer of Pay Dirt, and then the director, producer of this next one. You know, I'm always kind of in that mix for sure, doing it exactly that way. So you're just turning your own content.
And where are the funds coming for these productions? Are they from the earnings of previous productions?
Different things coming from different sales companies and distributors coming to us wanting to make these movies.
Okay. So you're getting some pre-sales and stuff?
Correct.
Is it the fact that it's genre that you think is a key selling point? I mean, obviously your resume is a key selling point, but is it the cast you attach? Is it genre? Could you talk a little bit about what you think?
Yeah, it's both. It's definitely the cast that we're able to bring on board, and the fact that, you know, like, I feel like my cup of tea is kind of the action comedy, action adventure style genre, thriller style thing. But, you know, that's action thrillers, anything dealing with that kind of genre is always a good selling point, even especially in the foreign markets, which is how a lot of these are sold.
Yeah, and I mean, after because this is Pay Dirt's your 11th or your 10th feature?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, so I mean, after you do that many, like you've got to be pretty proven. Like, you know, if you come to a company or investor or whatever, they must be like, oh
right,
yeah,
they know what to expect. Yeah, and that's what happened with this one. Is, you know, it's the same guys that did a movie I did back here in 2014 called The Night Crew. I did that, and they came back and was like, dude, you want to do it again in your backyard? I was like, yeah, hell yeah.
Nice. It's a dream. You live a dream
yeah,
life,
of
Christian.
Course.
And that's basically just affirmed.
That's when I'm not like crying in the shower, like artists.
Right.
Like, why did I choose this life? And then life goes, the life chose you.
Right.
Back to Pay Dirt. Tell us how you got Val. I mean, like, Val Kilmer, amazing, huge deal. How did that? What's the process?
Yeah. You want to hear the actual story,
yes,
or like the hybrid story?
The actual story.
Actual story. Myself and Mike Hatton, who plays Jeff in the movie, and he's my producing partner in this and a lot of these things. A movie of ours fell apart in Louisiana last summer. We were there all summer. We didn't even shoot a frame, and it just fell apart. And we ended up we were stranded by the production, right? We were like, what the fuck? And I was like, F this, man. I'm like, we're driving home. We couldn't find a flight out and for days, and we drove home from Baton Rouge to Los Angeles. I live in Palm Springs, so he dropped me off before. So it was like 26 hours driving, just fueled by rage and hatred. And like I drive the first 14 hours, I fall asleep, and then I wake up, and he's like, it was like a buddy road trip, like a classic buddy road trip. You just have snacks and shit, like Dumb and Dumber. And like, he's like, dude, I go, what's up? He was like, we're stopping by Tombstone. And I was like, yeah, that'll make me feel better. He goes, me too. So we stopped by Tombstone, right? Just to get out of our heads, because we're giant fans. And we're like walking the streets, and we're talking about Val and Kurt Russell and the movie. And we're just geeking out, just doing our normal shit. And then we have lunch and we head home. And then literally like a month later, I get the call about Pay Dirt. Like, it wasn't Pay Dirt. It was like, I get the call about making a movie. I start coming up with the storyline. I start writing, and then cast ideas start coming back, and then Val's name is like mentioned way back there, and we look at him, and I look at each other, we're like, Val Kilmer, weren't we just talking about how awesome we were with Val Kilmer? And we're like, dude, and we jumped on the Val opportunity. Like, we're like, are people hiring him? What's the deal? Is he acting? Is he still sick? What is the deal? We fought for it, man. Like myself and Mike and Jack, and we were like, they were working with his agent quite a bit, and you know, obviously we got the calls about his health, and they're like, well, he's not, you know, it's not what you think, and the voice and this, that, and the other. I was like, I don't care. That's Val Kilmer, dude. I go, I'll make this work creatively. Don't worry, I'll make it work. And they were like, no, I don't know. It's a big risk for production and the insurance. I'm like, dude, I will make this work. Trust me, it's going to be awesome. So Mike Hatton and I go meet him. He's interested. He'll take a meeting. We go meet him, and we just hit it off. And we're at his art gallery, and he's cool as shit. I mean, you know, he has a trach, so he speaks that way. But physically, that's what I was looking at. I was like, let me see how he moves, because there's acting and there's performance, not just sitting down and miming. And he was fine. He was up and down and running around the art gallery and taking phone calls or what have you. I was like, dude, this would be awesome. And he went for it. And I kind of told him what I wanted to do and how I wanted to shoot him and how we were going to execute it. And he was game. And I said, dude, let's do it. And the rest is kind of organically history, because literally in that same meeting, his daughter popped in and was like, hey, Dad, I'll see you later. I'm going to the store or whatever. And I go, oh, that's cool. It's your daughter? He was like, yeah. I go, that's nice. I have a daughter and blah, 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 2 daughters. And he goes, oh, yeah, she acts. She just moved back here from New York. I went, really? And I look at my buddy, Mike, I go, Val, you have a daughter in this movie, and it's literally the same age. And he goes, really? Yeah. It's kind of the core of the story. He goes, oh, wow. Well, do you want her audition? I'm like, fuck no. Like, let's do this. And he was like, oh, man, did you talk to her? And he started getting extra excited. He was already in. Then he got extra excited at the possibility of being able to act with his daughter. And then we met with her, and she was totally game, and that's how it happened.
So for the movie, did he overdub his own lines later? Do you have another actor do that? Like, what was the deal?
I have another actor that comes in, another voiceover comes in, and that was a long session.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And it's during COVID, so it's all mobile. So I'm here at home, just like with you guys, on my headphones. He is the voiceover actor is at his home. The sound recorder is at his home, and we're doing a crazy Zoom-style session for, 16 hours or something like that. It was a long one. It was really brutal, but I had to get it right as possibly could get.
Yeah, how do you sync in a remote, like, how do you give adjustments for sync? That's really nuts to me.
It's a testament to technology. We just, that's like, I'm looking at you speak. I was kind of similar. We kind of did like a share screen and things like that. It was pretty wild.
So when you're on set with Val, like, did he make any noise at all? Like, so you could have something to sync up with the voice actor? Like, how did you get the lines down?
When he's off camera, he's delivering his part, right?
Right.
But he does talk with the trick, so he has to cover it up, and he sounds like I sound like a pirate. He talks like that. But when the camera is on him, he would just mime it. He would say he would say the words, and he would give the performance. He's like miming it, right?
Wow.
And that's how we did the entire movie with him.
Did that have any big challenges? I mean, in the movie, like, I could definitely tell that it wasn't his voice watching it, but I was just like, it did seem really convincing with the words matching his lips. I was like, I was kind of, curious.
Like, well, I'm glad that you weren't like, fuck this. Like, I mean, I think the first part was, I personally had to get over the fact that it wasn't Val's voice, right? I had to get past it. And the guy that we use, Jesse Cordy, is a legend, and he does a ton of dubs for a lot of big actors. And I think you just have to at least give up the idea that it's going to sound just like Val, because the reality is all of us subconsciously or consciously know exactly what Val Kilmer sounds like. I've seen Top Gun, Tombstone, Willow, Doors, Batman. I've seen them all a jillion times. So I can literally register, like, I know what he sounds like. So I had to let go of that a little bit and go, okay, what does a character sound like? And then I had to just take it from there, and get it as close as possible to the sync.
And I know this, I'm sorry, I'm like the big picture question asker, so I keep on pulling us back a little bit. But I know this is your second career, and I just want to talk a little bit about your love of genre and the success you've found. So are you only going to make action films for the rest of your life, and why action films, and why?
No. I have a rom-com after this too. Like,
oh, cool.
So, I don't know if I would do a drama, maybe like a period piece thing, but I think the action, and this one I don't even like pay dirt. I think it's much more of a crime heist comedy thing. Like, it's really light and it's really funny. And same thing with like a few of the other ones I've done, like kind of that action comedy, action adventure. I obviously it's like the taste is very like Favreau Taika style thing where you're like, it's comedy, it's action, it's fun. It's just a fun, light thing. And for me, I like that's where I have other filmmaking friends, whatever, they're infused by different styles of whatever. I'm like, man, I grew up watching all the 80s popcorn flicks. Like that's who I am as a director. I'm like, oh, who are you? I don't know. I'm like freaking John McTiernan and, Verhoeven mixed with Spielberg and like Lucas and all these guys. I think painting people just, I think there is like, I think there's a power to that. And I think there's something cool to that you can watch something and go, man, that was fun. And that's it. Like, I think there's something cool to that. People are like, man, that was cool. That was fun. I laughed. I was this. And I think with Pay Dirt, just in and of itself, I just wanted to make something fun, really Guy Ritchie, Soderbergh stylish, really light and stylized, and really just showcasing the Valley.
And I think part of the reason I'm asking is we interview so many filmmakers who haven't made half the films you have. They made 1 or 2 films or are struggling to make their first film or whatever the situation is. And you really do have this pretty amazing track record. And I'm trying also to key in to, is genre part of that ability to churn out titles?
I think so. I think like, because it's templated, right? Because there is some sort of model when it comes to the action genre. I think it's easy to write where you like, you know, if you hit these certain action beats and you make it unique and you put your spin on it, it's going to be fun. It should be pretty good. But I don't know. I like I said, I like the rom-com stuff too. Like more of like it's like an edgier rom-com stuff, like, you know, whatever. But like I've done action stuff. Also, I know you're like, it's like this huge like repertoire of movies, but I always say that, you know, my film school is on display. Like I'm totally self-taught. Like I picked it up later in life per se. You know, I didn't start until I was like 30. I taught myself. I grabbed a camera. I friggin' bought some screenwriting books. I mean, I wrote a lot in college, like short stories but not screenplays. I was a huge movie buff, but I didn't know I was going to be a director. You know, and then I did a short film and I started like, wow, this is pretty, I think I'm kind of good at this. And I did another one. So I always go, man, like, whereas other people can make all the mistakes in a safe, like closed environment, like in a university's campus or something like that. I'm like, man, from the beginning, for whatever reason, like the very first feature I made for like $10,000 got put out and sold. We're like, well, here it is. You know, like, so it's like the film school is on display, good, bad, or ugly, but I don't know. I think it's maybe, you know, you kind of get your bones that way, and you get kind of thick skinned that way, and you learn the hard way. You learn there's no more trial by fire than that. Just going, man, I did that. I really like that. And then there's another one you're like, not so good, you know, or like, oh, that was like, I did that to keep the lights on. Cause like, again, I started this, like we're married, kids, all that. So I had to pay the mortgage as a working artist. And you could tell the ones that are like, eh, and you could tell the ones that are like on brand, as I say.
Well, it's really interesting because I was looking over your film repertoire, your film school, as you say, and you know you've done so many different genres. You've done like sci-fi, you've done comedy, you've done action comedy, you've done, you know, just a wide variety. And like, you know, when you're writing your 11th and 12th action movie, like, where do you find the inspiration to do something different that you haven't done in the past? Like, where do you draw to like get that story out there that's gonna like, you know, be fresh and different?
I always joke around, but I think there's some truth in that when I hear that question, because I go, the inspiration is literally like, oh fuck, I gotta pay the electricity bill, and like I gotta pay the mortgage, dude. Like, or like the kids are like, I got tuition to pay or whatever, and you're like, dude, you better fucking think of something now. And I think that causes you or me to like just start writing and doing and getting in that mode of like, I better work something out. And I think from there, then the creativity just starts popping off, and you're like, ideas start playing. But it's like, man, I think it's that fire where you're like, dude, you have to make this work, or you have to make a project. You have to hustle to get something going. And then from there, the creativity starts to roll. I always go, man, I wish I was just kind of like chilling. I have this idea that's like, oh man, I have a great idea for a movie. It's more like, bro, I got to pay the bills. I better come up with an idea for a movie.
You're like, it has to star this person, it has to star this person, it needs to come out of this state, it's going to be this genre, it's for this market, you know, what can I do?
It's exactly that way. It's exactly that way. It's literally like, I have this amount of money, this person can do it, here's the parameters, make whatever it works within parameter. And try to make it like something new and fresh and funny. So it's challenging for sure. But then I guess it's like, I don't know, it's like anything. It's once you're in it, you're just kind of in it.
When you're trying to evaluate what is commercial, do you look at box office? Do you look at, like, what are your resources for evaluating whether you think something's going to hit?
I think it's like, one, I don't do, like, Pager was supposed to be just this little tiny thing we did for fun with some buddies and whatever. Like, but when we were doing it, it just felt extra special too. And I think, like, I mean, it's getting a lot of heat right now, which is bananas, you know, because it really is on the lower budget side than anything I've done in a while, believe it or not. This is like, I haven't done something this small budget-wise in a minute. Which is interesting to say. But when it comes to like that question, I think that's just my taste. Again, growing up in that and everything that gets filtered, like the movie brain gets filtered through that. It's always through that kind of, I don't think it's ever niche or it's ever like a festival art house piece. It's always something kind of mainstream and commercial in general. And anyway, so I always think that, I hope that would be, I always think if I like it, and that's my taste, like when I'm watching movies, that's really what I watch.
So then how do you figure out the budgets? Like you said, this one is like lower budget than a lot of the other movies you've made recently. Are you setting that budget? Like, is it coming to you from some other entity and they're saying this is how much you can spend on this movie? Like, how does that work out?
Sometimes, and that budget will be determined by who kind of like the lead actors are, right? So it's like, in the independent foreign sales driven model, the business side of it, it's like, okay, we have a Val and Luke Goss movie. There's the actual number amount estimate that goes to those. Same thing with anybody. If you just said, hey, what about this person? These sales guys already have this templated formula that they know exactly what that movie would make to break even. So whatever that number is your budget.
And I feel like Alrik isn't, but I feel like I'm grilling you a little bit, so I'm going to try to act a little less intense.
No. I like it. I've been married 25 years.
You've been grilled before.
Let me tell you something. You ain't grilling me, girl. You ain't not grilling me at all.
Talking about budget, talking about pay dirt, you're saying it's a crime film. I totally agree with you from what I've seen. But there's set pieces in here. There's technology in here. There's a lot of things that point to other resources, larger resources. So is it favors? Do you have a best friend who does visual effects? Do you have a stunt choreographer who's like your brother? Okay, tell us a little bit about those kind of things.
Yes, and yes. Yes, absolutely. My DP, not on this one, but like the cinematographer that I work with all the time is also my VFX supervisor. So they do a lot of that. The locations are all locations that I know I can get because I'm super good friends with the mayor of the city of Coachella. I've sat on like the Palm Springs Arts Commission board. Like, it's just like you in your hometown going, oh, I know Donnie Sweet Sue from the pharmacy down the way. They're going to get me a milkshake, and I know I can get that milkshake for $1.25.
You think I'm from Arkansas, I think.
No, but it is that thing. It still is a small town feel out here where you can go, hey, and if not, no joke. It's like, oh, dude, my landscaper homie, he's like, oh, we got RVs, bro. And he'll like, it's just stuff like that. And you're like, okay, great. We have all the cast RVs for nothing or whatever. And that's what it is when you're making films in a community that supports you, that that knows your work, that knows that you respect it. Like I did this as kind of, there's a little bit of a love letter here to the east end of the valley there with like some of these locations and the sprawling Salton Sea and the date fields with the palm trees and all that stuff. That's not really been seen on screen. When you think Palm Springs in this area, it's always like mid-century modern homes and palm trees and pools.
Tiki bars, just personal favorite.
Yeah, tiki bars. I love it. And I love those too. But it's like, that's such a small portion. But yeah, it's all favors, all of it. Like, I can't think of one favor that we didn't get from somewhere. Like, it's all favors. Like like Coachella was our backlight. We're like, hey, dude, we're going to go shoot over there. Like, great, we're going to shut off these streets. We'll do this, that. We'll set one cop up here, one cop. I'm like, awesome, we'll see you there. And it's like that.
Wow, that's awesome.
It's so dream. Awesome. Yeah. It's so awesome.
So you made like a lot of movies, and then a good number of these movies have also starred Luke Goss, along with a bunch of other actors who are in pay dirt. And I'm just curious, like, I want to hear about what it's like to work with a troupe of actors that you go back with movie after movie after movie. Like, what's that experience like?
I think, look, we all are huge movie buffs. I think we've seen it before on a big scale with like the Tarantinos and the Rodriguezes and the Scorseses and even, the Seth Rogen, Franco bunch and the Adam Sandler bunch. And like, you kind of have a group of buddies that are good and that you love making movies with and you have a blast doing it. And Luke Goss is one of those. Luke Goss is like a home, like we've become really tight now. So we just have a blast working together. And it is kind of that kind of dream environment where you step on set and it's just a blast. But it's a blast with them taking their craft totally seriously. And they're really doing it. And so, and it's fun. And it's like, why not? I mean, there's a lot of people that I didn't work with before in this movie, but there's also like, I think there's a little core group that has that safety net and that level of just cool. And I think their banter comes off super hilarious and natural, you know, and I think you can't buy that sometimes. There's no question mark. You're like, I hope they work together on screen, as opposed to, man, I've seen these guys argue at the bar for the last 10 years together, like off screen, right? I think it's gonna be funny too, and put it on screen. So it's funny.
Did you ever try the like film festival, like that long game of, I don't even know what, cachet building or whatever it is you want to call it?
Yeah. No, there is that. I think that early on, like I started with like my very first short film was on the film festival circuit. It shouldn't have been, but it was, right? It was like, man, I looked like my kid did it with like a friggin' crayon. I was just like, wow. It shouldn't have been, but we did it. And then after that, I did another film fest, like when my very first feature, like Palm Springs has a pretty prestigious film festival.
Oh yeah, no, I love
it's huge.
Both the short and the international. Yeah,
and so the short kind of, I would say, was what gave me a break by just showing it. But the Palm Springs Film Festival was so highbrow, and it was so, just early on, it was like, yeah, this dude's tastes way too like regular shit. Like it's like, you know, it's not like two people smoking in a Paris cafe in black and white. We're going to program. But like some mainstream kind of stuff, I don't know. You know, it was kind of like that. I just knew right off the bat that my stuff was just too kind of mainstreamy for that. And trying to get into South by Southwest, I felt like a lot more of my style.
But it doesn't seem like that's not part of your business model. It doesn't seem like. It seems like you just go straight to distributors and then you just sell your movies that way.
Yeah, exactly.
How did you find, just I know we're almost done, but at the very beginning, connecting with solid sales agents who weren't going to rip you off, who weren't barnacles on the bottom of ships, by the way. I don't know if you could tell how I feel about sales agents.
Yeah, well, I think that like out of the 11 movies or so I've done, that's only happened in the last 3 or something.
Oh.
You know? So,
in terms of the pre-sales.
Right. So imagine like all the other ones that didn't go so well, you know? It's been really a trial by error and trial by, you know, like it's been a rough road.
So after, you know, whatever, making all these movies, like at what point did this become sustainable for you? You know, was it after movie 5,
What's
6,
today?
7?
What's today? 2 weeks ago? At times it definitely feels like that, not gonna lie. I mean, it's like for somebody like myself, and you're not at that 1% of directors that are pulling in giant paydays. You know, this is kind of like right now, you're a working artist like anybody else. So I think that it became a career like 2011, I'd say. I think after like a movie called Shoot the Hero, that was like what I consider like my very first movie in essence. And that's been like that. So it's been a career since then. Like I've been able
9 years.
Yeah, I've been able to make a living off of it. You know, sometimes it's feast, like a lot of times it's feast or famine, but you're still doing it, you know. But it's definitely, it is what it is.
That's interesting. Shoot the Hero, because that's like is that technically your second movie or your third movie?
It was like fourth.
Or fourth. Wow.
Yeah, because what happened was I didn't fuck around with shorts anymore. Like I did a couple. And I was like, God damn, dude, nobody's taking me seriously. And they were like, you got to make a full feature. You got to make a full feature. I was like, okay, if that's what you want to do, right? If that's what you want, if you want to make like feature movies, you got to do it. And so after that, I was like, okay. And I did it. And so that's why it was like one of those things where you just had to just jump in and just start doing it. And, you know, like I said, Shoot the Hero, I always consider like my first kind of, what I would say is almost like your first real student project or student film that had some money behind it. You know, that had some actors in it, and it was like on brand. I think I was able just to write. It's very similar to Pay Dirt in a way. You know, it is that way. And at the time, it was like 2009, 2010. I remember I wrote it and it came out, and I still like it. I think it's a really fun movie. But at the time, people were like, why are you doing crazy action and cracking jokes in the same scene? And I'm like, I don't know, because it's cool. I like that. Like, for me, I was like, what do you mean? You know, and now it's all that. You know, like, dude, yeah, hello. I know that, you know, but it's always been like that. But it was like, I remember they were like the investor and the salespeople were like, we don't get it. I'm like, okay.
Well, now they do. I think it's time for our final 5 questions.
Oh, go hit it. Are we going to do the rapid fire?
Well, I mean, it's less rapid fire than the first round, but it's more big picture questions, right? So what's the first film you ever made and how do you feel about it now?
The first short film I ever made was a movie called Cycles, but the first feature film I made was called 6:30, and it was a drama about this this like rich white kid that ends up in Tijuana on a drug run and ends up in all types of trouble. There's a few reasons why I like it. One, it was families in it, like my mom, my grandma, it was us, all of us in it. So my mom passed away, but so I get to immortalize her and still watch her on screen, right? So it's special that way. And so it's like she'll forever live in animation, like she'll forever live like that and doing that. So she got to act and it was fun. But I personally think that you could see the style that still pervades everything today in that very first one. Because I did another one after that. I tried to divert and it didn't feel the same. But that one was like, I still think that one was all me per se. So I think you could see that and go, okay, I could see everything that he's doing now then, you know. So it was cool.
What's the best filmmaking advice you've ever received?
Oh man, just pick up a camera and do it. It's as simple and cliche, as tropey as it sounds. It really is that way. Just go to the batting cages. We say it all the time. Fucking pick up, like just swing. Like you're going to hit a single. You might, like if you're lucky, you'll hit a home run, but you just get up to bat as much as possible. Like other stuff, you're just like, hey man, is this going to be a batting cages movie, which is like practice movies? Or is it going to be like real? Is it going to be a real thing? So you just do it. Just do it. And like, you know, I've not said no to stuff. Like I hear that all the time. You have to be picky. You have to be this, but I still feel that a lot of times when I wanted to say no to things, those things have brought a lot of success. And I've learned a lot from the projects that I knew were going to be difficult, but I still did anyways. You know, like again, Pay Dirt, here we are. It's coming out. And like people were talking shit about it when I was going to do it. They were like, you're not going to do that. I'm like, you're not going to have any money. You're not going to have this. You're not going to have that. I was like, sorry, man. I'm like, I don't give up. I got to work. I have to tell a story. I got to like pay the rent. I want to do this. I haven't been in the director's chair in a second. I'm going to do this. I don't care. I was like, I don't care what you guys say. You know, it's like everybody was like managers, buddies are like, dude, you're going to do that. You're going to work with Goss all over again. You're going to do this all over again. You're going to work in your hometown. Like you got to be making bigger movies. I go, yeah, dude, I know. I want to make giant movies. I want to make fucking Man of Steel too. Like, believe me, I do. But until then, you know, I got to do something.
What's your goal as a filmmaker?
Man of Steel 2?
Yeah, it sounds like.
No, honestly, I mean, I feel like movies have always been the goal. And I got to be honest, like in my brain, I don't think I'll ever feel I've made it until I'm directing a Star Wars movie or a Marvel movie or DC movie or some sort of tentpole franchise. Because I think that my taste lies in that. And I'm a giant fan of that. And just kind of like, I think that's where I go, okay, yeah, this is the sandbox I want to play in and want to.
If you could go back in time, what's one piece of advice you would give yourself?
Don't worry, kid. Like, it's all going to work out. You know, I think that as kids, I always go back to like the high school me. And then you just, you know, we're just times where you have no idea how it's all going to turn out. And life is tough and rough and hard. And you're just like, just keep going. Like, it's all going to be okay. You know, you're going to have amazing life experiences if you just keep with that. Keep following your passion. Just keep doing it. It's going to be hard as shit, but it's going to be worth it.
Is making movies hard?
Yeah, of course. But then anything like worthwhile always is, right? If it was easy, it's like, then I don't think we know the value of it.
So, Christian, where should people go if they want to watch Pay Dirt or find you or watch other movies?
Yeah, Pay Dirt, August 7th, on demand and digital everywhere. You can find me on social media at Seskri, Seskri, on the gram, social, you know, Facebook, Christian Sesma, blah, blah, blah. I think I have a few movies on like Prime right now, like Night Crew and something else, and Vigilantes on iTunes.
You've made so much. You're like, it's hard to have an accounting of where everything is.
It sounds pretty douchey, but it really isn't. It's more like, it's like douche away, kid, douche away. No, I know that. I know like Night Crew and stuff like that's on Prime, and Vigilantes still on iTunes. So, and then here we go with Pay Dirt. It's going to be fun.
Amazing.
Awesome.
Thank you. This is so cool.
Thank you, guys. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for listening, and thanks to Christian Sesma for being on the show, and to Judy Merrick of KWPR for setting this up. I really just have to say, this talk with Christian was fucking awesome. Oh my God. So encouraging, so exciting, and really just like a good example of like what a working filmmaker can look like, and that, yes, it does exist. You can make movies, and you can survive off it. You just have to figure it out somehow. Christian has some really great tips on how to do that. You can check out our website at makingmoviesisart.com, where you can find links to things that we talked about in this episode. If you want to get in contact with us, you can send an email to podcast@makingmoviesishard.com, or you can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at MMIH Podcast. I am Alrik B on Twitter, and Liz?
I am Liz Manischel at Twitter and Liz Manischel Film on Instagram.
Please, if you like the show, tell a friend, help us get the word out, leave a review on iTunes or Stitcher. That's a great place to do it. Also, go to our YouTube page and subscribe. You can find it in the bio on our Instagram page, which you should also subscribe to if you haven't yet. So those are good things. And finally, thanks to our producers, Greg Holtzman and Joshua Sterling Bragg, our editor, Colby Crow, and the whole Bloodstream Media team for making this episode possible. And we will talk to you guys next week.
Called Celie or Celie. Celie. Celie.
Celie. So here's Hannah to talk about the film.